All right, everyone. Again, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to these sessions. Of course, it's just one thing I've given myself the next few weeks or maybe the next 3 months, just see how I can kind of like help people and interested people really. Essentially, the whole idea of this is that for people who already have the knowledge, yeah, maybe like build more knowledge about that what they already know. However, for some who are just starting, we will also like gradually build up that knowledge. So there are there are different stacks. Like I said, you don't have to do all these stacks. Some are doing UX and UI UX, some are doing front end, and this is back end. But if you think you have capacity to carry both at the same time, that's fine. But this is purely going to be back end conversations in terms of logic and stuff like that, which I've outlined here, and some of the tools we're going to be using. And this will always hold Mondays 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., Wednesdays and Fridays. Of course, there's a lot to cover. It doesn't mean that in the next 3 months we're going to cover everything that ever existed. Do you get? But it will help us to understand the basics of what backend is and how to get into it, and probably something that helps you to begin working yourself and maybe build up portfolios that can be used for subsequent job roles, transition into tech completely and stuff like that. So if you look at my screen on here, so I'll just zoom in so that it's a bit larger. I've just split the session into different parts. The one with you look at that here. I've got Laravel, like PHP basically. These are PHP stacks. Of course, you can use my SQL. That's a backend. I'm sorry, that's a database thing. And on this
database.
side, sorry, and on the part two, which will start after this, is the JavaScript stack, which will have the Node.js, Express, and MongoDB. This one is kind of like a document model kind of database, and this one is more relational, like relational table database. But everything we will understand as time goes on. So today, basically, there isn't much for us to cover every time because I would not load us with chunk of stuff. I would only give important things, and where necessary, we'll do the setups and everything, and I'll share guides how to set up your devices for this whole thing. So yeah, introduction to backend development, HTTP, APIs, client, server model. So I've got a presentation slide here that we're just going to use to go through everything one after the other. And of course, if you have questions, please, you can just wait, just write your questions down so that we can utilize time properly. Just write your questions down, and then at the end of the session, we can take the questions. Bear in mind that by 5:15, I also need to start the other session as well for the front end people. So that would be nice for us to just manage our time properly. Okay, so good. Now let's come to backend. Does any like if you have an idea of what backend is, essentially backend development is backend. Let me just put it that way. Is backend means that it is what you cannot see. You cannot see it. It is kind of like the logic of every system that we know that ever exists in tech. So whether it is the whole AI thing now and stuff like that, there are actually some core backend technologies that those machines run on. Do you get? It's like the driver. Do you get? And you know, back in the days, if you were doing Python and the like, you hear things like, oh, GUI. Do you get? GUI is that graphics user interface on the front end. You see, this is my screen now for my PDF. But there's some engine running these tabs behind the scene. Do you get what I'm saying? Those are the things we will be looking at. The technologies we will be looking at essentially is PHP, and then the framework within PHP is Laravel. And then for JavaScript, we'll look at Node.js and then Express for API, and maybe just a bit of MongoDB as well for for database. Right. So basics, understanding server-side dynamics. Backend focuses on server-side processes, things that you cannot see, things that are just behind the scene, ensuring seamless communication between databases, application, and server. That is all core functionality hard to cut on Amazon website or on Jumia website or any website. That hard to cut function is primarily a backend function. Do you get? But that click of a button is what activates that function. And when that function is activated, when you click that button, it does one thing. It talks to the server at the back. The server then say, okay, what do you want? I want two pieces of white shirts or two white shirts. Do you get two white shirts? It will take the number two, right? It will take the color white, right? And take the type of clothes, shirts. Those are three data, right? It will take those three data, it will send them, it will travel into the database, right? And tell the database, do you have shirts? The database say yes. Do you have white shirts? If the database say yes. Do you have two white shirts? Database will say yes. If those three values are found in the database, then it returns them back. So in the idea of a cart now, like adding to cart, maybe I need to show what I mean by adding to cart. Let's just go to jumia.com, start shopping. Maybe I've traveled further. Let me bring you back. Yeah, let me bring you back home so that before we go into cart directly. Look at this page now, right? On this page, you have several elements. What we can only see is we can see appliances, phones, tablets, health and beauty, all those things, all catchy in the face. But this data are coming from somewhere. These products are coming from somewhere. The place where all these products are coming from is called the database, right? The resource that is bringing this to present it in the UI is now the back-end function me and you are about to start learning about. Do you get? That is what we're about to start learning. So if this doesn't exist in database, it cannot show it. It will only show things that exist in database. So now back to the data I was talking about. So if I pick this clothes now, okay, it's even carrying white already. So if I pick this cloth now and say I want to add this cloth to white, you see that there are some things it will not happen. I hope they tell me to select. I hope they design properly anyways. If I had to cut, it's supposed to tell me to select a size. Yes. Do you get? That is how the front end will design it. And backend knows that. That is what the backend is expecting. Because if I send this request to a backend, right, that had this thing to a cart of Mr. A, I am just saying something abstract. The backend needs to know, is this small King's Cartel white classic shirt, or is it medium? Is it large? Those are the variables that the database will use to determine whether that cloth is available or not. Do you understand? That is the logic behind the scene. Right. So now let's come to we have not started designing API or anything. We're just trying to see how the backend system works generally. So now, what are the key responsibilities? Backend developers are responsible for facilitating communication between the server, application, and the database. I mean, the database is the end part. You get is the end, like where everything is. Of course, there's infrastructure, which is not what we are doing now. Do you get? There's people who do infrastructure, which of course is much even further than going into database. Do you get? But the database itself would have been set up by infrastructure team or whatever infrastructure you're using. Maybe you're buying a shared hosting. Do you get? So you always have a database for whatever you're designing. That database itself would contain data, but the backend developer, right, is the one who will design how the database should look like. Do you get? Is that person that will design how the database should look like? Mind you, because in a very large organization, example Facebook, right? This type of rules are specific, like they are very specific. Means that what we call back-end developer, right? If you're going to go to a company like Facebook, right? Specialty is very key, or maybe Google. A back-end developer, right, in Python would not be the one to architect the whole solution. The back-end developer is just going to write all the logics. Do you get? There are some people they call solution architects. Do you get? Those people would have probably most likely transited from being a back-end developer, do you get, to become a certified solution architect. What is a solution architect? Somebody who architects a whole system. So the whole thing you are seeing on Facebook, some set of people, of course, it won't be one person, some set of people live day and night trying to think of, we have 2 billion users. right? 2 billion users. What is the data required by these 2 billion users? How often will this person post? How many posts do I expect from them every day? What is the average post? What is the type of post they will be doing? Do you get? That is a system architect. They call that process system design, right? The person would design this. They are not writing code. Oh. Do you get? There's no code in this thing. They are sitting down to think. They know everything code already, but they sit down to think of how a system would operate. Do you get? And how a system is supposed to operate functionally and seamlessly. Do you get? And that is the core basic. I used to tell a lot of people software engineering is more about your brain before your hands. Do you get? Before you start bringing your hands and say, oh, let me put code here, code. You have to architect it in your head. And that is kind of like, that's why I said for a solution architect now, the person must have first been a backend developer who understands how system works. Do you get? Before they now advance into solution architect, into systems architect, enterprise architect. Those are levels of people architecting different things. Oh, do you get? An enterprise architect now is somebody who manages a whole lot of solution architect. Do you get? And what are they doing? They're just saying, oh, if we're going to build a solution that would need two, these people are well paid. Let me just excite you with that. They are not paid in the level of a developer. For you to build a system that will take 5,000 people at a concurrent request, then you need this type of server, you need this type of disk, you need this type of solution, you need this type of load balancer, you need, and they will set all those things together, and then the developer, maybe your backend developer or you being the backend developer, and now begins to work based on that solution they are. Do you get? Now, the database itself is where those data would sit, but you as a backend developer, for the small stage, I've just used that to tell you that in a more advanced company, those things are separated. But in our own starting stage, well, it's not like that in my company as well, it's all separated. I'm not the one who will design backend. Do you get? But for our own state of this learning, it is we, the backend developer, that will first design the database. You get? So the person who, coming back to Jumia now, right? Who would say, I want to say, let's use an e-commerce. Maybe we'll use e-commerce for a case study in this whole learning, right? The person who would say, I want to build an e-commerce site, right? What do I want to be selling? I want to be selling clothes. Do you get? Right? If I want to be selling clothes, is the only thing the person wants to do on their e-commerce. Simple problem, right? Simple problem. But when you come out to say, I want to now design that kind of system, it's not about carrying PHP or carrying Node.js and start writing code that we are user login authentication. No, that's not the problem. The problem is first sitting down and saying, okay, this person is going to be selling clothes. Clothes is the main product there. What are the characteristics? They call it schema. It's called a schema. What are the characteristics of these clothes? Do you get? So in that we then get size, color, print, patterns, different things. So let me just show you the flow here now. So now this is this person, okay, this is Jumia, this is their clothes line, yeah. This is the shirt we are looking for or that we have found, right? If you see this breadcrumb flow, you will see that it comes first from what? Hoodies and sweatshirts. Big and tall, whatever they are big and tall means that they have sizes for this type of category. Do you get? Men's fashion. So if you're now going to design a system and you just pick up your computer, you start writing code. No, you first think of, oh, who do you want to be selling clothes for? Is it just for children? No. If is it just for women? No. I want to sell for women, I want to sell for children, I want to sell for men. Right? Three people. Problem. So in your database, you know that there is clothes, but that clothes can belong to who? A man, a woman, or a child, right? Problem expands. If it's a child, a girl, or a boy, right? If it's a girl or a boy, then you come to sizes. Do you understand? So we will get to that scope as time goes on in terms of how those things work because those data, they don't, you don't just think about them, right? You would map them out and draw a schema of how they exist before you even write code at all. Do you get? Because you as a backend developer, what the front end developer is expecting from you is that when I make a query to an endpoint, I request for products or maybe clothes, right? I should see maybe like 20 clothes. Those 20 clothes should come in a JSON object, right? When I get that JSON object, it should contain 20 clothes with all data as each JSON. JSON means JavaScript serialized object nodes or something, right? If those each clothes should carry all the data. So if I see clothes one, I should see color of the clothes, the pattern of the clothes, the image of the clothes, several things in that data. And that's what determines how you will now design this database. Because in this our own starting style, we will be the one to be designing our database. Do you get? And for every person who is, of course, everyone started designing their database themselves. Before you become a solution architect or anything, you will first have to be the one designing your database because that gives you understanding of what needs to be done. So when the database is designed, right? I mean, for SQL, it's quite easy, like MySQL. For MongoDB, it's a bit tricky because that would all come from your code in maybe like Node.js. You get if you're using Node.js, it will all come from your code, how you have architect or structured your code, right? So now, protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, that's HTTP, right? Serves as the back end of like data transfer. So all the requests that you will be making, all the endpoints rather, that you will be creating, yeah, will be coming from the backend, that is the database, but needs to travel through something. That carrier or that means of transporting it is HTTP, right? So you hear, I mean, some of us are already fond of web or you hear, the, do you want to ask a question? Wow. Okay. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry for cutting you. I just wanted to ask one small question.
Right.
You were mentioning database. I mean, I've been working with database, but I want to understand. Database, is it just, can we call one table a database or a database is multiple table?
It's collection of tables, right? It's a collection of all tables, yeah? Because each table is made up of a row and column. It would explain what the columns is. Columns are your data types, and rows are the data you have in your table, right? We will get to all those things as time goes on in terms of what we're learning. However, the reality is there's a lot of things to design or to determine first, even before getting to part of which data am I storing in my table, what type of data is it, how are they going to request for this data, how are they going to use this data. Those are the things that the backend person thinks of. That is why another excitement, of course, in any world, in any real world, the backend developer earns more money than the front end developer because they're actually the ones who do the reasoning. Do you get? You have to be the one thinking, and your thinking must be faultless, if I can say that. Do you get? Because that's what bets the product we all see in online. So I'll just continue. But please, next time, let's just have our questions down and then we'll take it at the end. So that we can quickly cover. Yeah, so the way they talk to each other is the HTTP, the hypertext protocol, transfer protocol. So what happens here? Of course, you make a request, that request hits my URL, whether www.ife.com, right? That URL, www.ife.com, is just a text, right? The person, the registrar holding that data is holding another data, which is called the IP, Internet Protocol. That Internet Protocol is the main place where your server is living. Do you get? And whatever request you have made is being transported through that URL to the IP, and then the IP goes into your database. Because the real world or the real truth about this is what we call database is actually a database, is an hard disk. In case you don't know that before, I'm just saying it again. It's actually an hard disk, like it's a computer. Do you get? It's a computer with an hard disk somewhere, right? So if you are building locally, you will see it as we go on. If you're building locally, right, it is actually your computer, right? When we set up, say maybe like we set up XAMPP server or WAMP server or maybe MongoDB server, you get, those data have to sit on your computer. But the difference between the one online is because You don't have facility to make your database on your computer public, although I will show you some ways to like Ungrok to make it public. Do you get? But that's not good for production. So when you purchase a database or you purchase a server somewhere, that same server is sitting somewhere in a location. That location has an IP address, and it is through that IP address it is then traveling. Do you get? And then going to look for whatever data your user has requested for, which is your own design. And then things like that, we'll be talking about latency, like time for you to respond or for your server to respond. So these are some of the things, because when you're designing backend as well, you're not just designing based on your thoughts. You're also designing in terms of efficiency. It means that there are codes that you will write that when the user makes a request, it will take 2 seconds, right? And there are codes that you can write efficiently that when a user makes request, it will take 0.02 seconds. They are two different things. Seconds might look small in our face as we are saying it, whether 2 seconds or 0.02 seconds. But in real world, people are impatient. Do you get what I'm saying? So Facebook, big companies would cherish that latency to be sure that users get the data they need in very little time. Because the more of those time that are adding together, the more or the slower your backend services is. Do you get? So now, understanding that HTTP protocol is how you talk to them, then there are commands to talking. Do you get? You know, like we tell children when children are growing up, sit, stand, kneel, whatever the commands are. Do you get? Those are like ways we talk to children. In this same world of backend development, front-end developers too would know this one, right? There are ways that we talk to the backend, to the database. These are all backend functions. However, they mean what do you want to do to your backend, to your database, or to your data, whatever it is. Do you get? So, I mean, it's quite explanatory from what I've written here. So you see, there's what we call a get request. A get request is always a standard request too. So on this page now, right? On this page, everything you see here, if they are we call them dynamic data. If they are all dynamic data, which they should be, they are all coming through a get request, and I'll show you if they made it possible or if they made it visible. So one tip is how to know the type of request these guys are using now. So I'll come here. Let me just refresh so that you see. So what you do is just right click on your computer, go to inspect. When you inspect, comes here, you see element console. You are going to network. So when you come to network, it's taking a bit of time to load. Okay. So I'm sorry, don't mind me. I've got one set there. Right. So if I refresh that page now, you will see the data that's coming through. So these are all the data. Can you see? Can you see that all this data they're having time? Can you see that they're having time on it? Time it is taking to load. Time it is taking to. Can you see how slow some of these things are? So this time they really matter when we come to large products. So now let's come to the reason why we are here itself. So let's check this data, right? This is date display. I don't know what this means to them. Let's see where they are getting that data from. You go to headers. That's getting from. They are trying to get my location really. This is what this is. Let me check this one. This is another. These are all plugins to be honest. It's not this. They are all external. It's not directly from them. Now this is analytics as to where I'm visiting from. These are analytics. You will see that all these data type, you will see their request type. If you come here, so request method, you can see this is a post, this is a post, this is a post. Like I said, they are just using this data to get where I am coming from. When I say get now, I don't mean get request. So when you want to, so let me explain. So this is me. I'm here. I visited this site, right? They want to record that I visited this site. It is a post request. You get? Want that's what those first things are for. So they want to request that they know that oh Mr. A has visited. Okay, Mr. A has visited. Send to my database that Mr. A visited at so time. That is post. Send the letter to my backend. Do you get? Get is get data from my backend. So I'm trying to find their get request here. Payload. Some of these data are just crazy data. Yes. Let me see what this
So,
is. Is this the
sorry, please.
it's alright.
So just to buttress what you said about the method post. When a client make a request to an endpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, it's so the request. Okay, let's say an as what's it called? As asynchronous request rather.
Asynchronous. Yes.
Yes, understand. I just want to like that process of making a request to an endpoint, and when it hits that endpoint, it's either it goes to it make the request, and after making the request it responded back. It went to the server and go and search
Yeah.
for that particular request that the client is asking for, then get back to the client with the this thing. So but at some point you know I'm still not getting that the handshake, like how it communicates
Yeah.
between the
So one thing to get clearly here is be it asynchronous. Your method is your method. Your method is just one, right?
yes,
You're either doing a
yes,
get or you're doing a post.
posts.
However, every request must come back with a response,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
Every request must come back with a response. It might be going too advanced for some people who are just starting out. Every request would come back with a response, right? That response
Mm-hmm.
determines the next action. Do you get? So
Yes,
imagine
yes.
if it is a login request, yeah. I make an async request to say login into jumia.com, right? When I log in, I pass in user email and password.
Mm-hmm. Of
The server or the URL endpoint will collect that as data, right?
course,
Whether
yes.
encrypted or not, and send it to my backend. My backend will take those two values and check it against my database, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
If
I'm getting.
it is valid user details, it will do one thing. It will create a session.
Mm,
Do you get? It will then create a session for that user. Doesn't mean that that post request is the one sending you to the next level. No, it is because a get request has been made within that request. Do you get? Get will always be the one that brings you data back. Do you get? However, your response is different, right? But because when it creates a session, it then creates a session for you in the database, means that if you go to any other page, of course, the front end designer would have done one thing. Once the front end designer gets back maybe your key, like maybe your session token, do you get? We'll still go sorry
yes,
for people who don't understand this. Maybe it has created your session token. Your session token is then what will be part of the data that will be sent back. Do you get? As a response for that post request.
for that post, yes.
Yes. So sending so much like maybe somebody logs in now, you're now sending all the dashboard data of that person through your post request is not a right way of designing API. Do you get?
Okay,
Just
yeah, I get.
enable that session, right? Enable that person's session. When that person's session is enabled, the only thing you probably need to pass back for that user, which should be most likely executed, is their session token or their active token or whatever token you call it in your own system, right? That session token will now be what the user will be using to visit every other page. Do you get? Within the site or within the app that requires authentication. Do you get? So
Yeah, I get.
post is still post add my session to DB, right? Because you are making a request to check something or to get
Yes,
something, right? The
yes.
reason why we cannot use get is because when get is coming, get is supposed to just carry my data, right? For
Mm-hmm.
login, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just supposed to carry my data. It won't take you are I'm sorry, it won't take your user ID or password as data. Get can only take web parameters like params maybe in your URL.
Okay,
Say
yes, yes.
get my name, if I get this, you won't be making your password that public. Do you get? So your password should not be going into your URLs or stuff like that. That's why you can't use get. But for post, you can do that. Do you get? So it goes in as part of the data. We'll see that when we get to Postman, understanding what Postman can do. So sorry for a bit of
Mm.
technicality for every other person.
Thank you
You're welcome.
for more
Right.
insight.
So let's move on. So get request retrieve existing data, post send new data, put is brother to post. But this time when you are putting something, you are putting with an ID or with whatever data you're using to identify it, right? You are putting with an identifier means that I want to update an existing data, right? Then I can do a put request. Put is add this more data to this data. Patch is very similar to put, is like modify partial data. Do you get from my list of existing data which I had posted initially? Delete is like truncate, delete the whole thing. Now, one thing to also know is that, right, so this thing, right, like I've said, this whole system of web or HTTP methods, these are just maybe like front end requests, right? But there's a way they are translated when it comes to working with database. So if we get to maybe like MySQL, I'll show us some of these things. Like for get now, you do select, select asterisk, select all means that's what it means. Select all users from table
So,
users. Do you get? Like there are commands for that. However, in Laravel, there's something we call eloquent. Laravel eloquent. It helps us to pull some of this data. So we'll get to some of these things as time goes on. Now, okay, I've already explained some of these things in terms of patch. Now, APIs and RESTful APIs. So APIs are interfaces that allow different software applications to communicate and integrate, enabling seamless data exchange functionality across. Whilst RESTful API follows a specific architectural style, right? Meaning that for React app or for React, maybe like reactive apps like Vue.js and the likes, you need a RESTful API. Do you get? Means that data is always available, right, when you need it because they are almost stateless use case. Do you get? Now, let's come to what we mean by stateless. Stateless means stateless is not for it's not for the back end essentially, right? It's more of a front end thing. But it depends on how you have built your system as well. That's what will determine how the front end person can use it, right? So when we say something is stateless, means that if I'm accessing data now, right? If that data changes, right? I can almost get the updated data immediately that data changes. Do you get? Because they will be using a stateful instance. Does that make any sense at all? Don't worry.
can, can, can you
Even
come
when
again?
we deal with it.
Can you recap that again, please?
Okay.
I want to get
So
something.
now, when we say stateless communication, right, means that I don't on front end is stateful, they have to be stateful, right? On back
Yes,
end,
yes, you need to
the
stay. Yeah.
stateless means that we are not maintaining the data for a long time, right? So if A changes to B, right,
Mm-hmm.
A should change to B immediately. Do you get? On your data. It's not like on a stateful API, right? Or sorry, not a stateful API now. On a stateful front end,
Mm.
when we click, okay, let me show you what we mean. This will make it easy. Let me just add it to cart. Right. So now look at this process. Yeah. On front end, right? I'm doing this. Sorry, this is not a good example to be honest, because they are first loading and loading. In a more reactive app, which of my app can I go to find it? Which app can I go? I'm trying to think of one which I can just use. So basically, what happens is this data, yeah, this data is already in their DB, right? At the moment, just waiting for me to check out. Yeah. So I'll still use this one to explain. As I'm clicking this plus or minus, right? This data is also immediately updating in their database. Do you get? Means that database is not keeping records or keeping a data for long before offloading it. Do you get? On this side, it is the stateful app because I didn't have to leave this page, even though they are doing some loading, which shouldn't be the case. You get? This is very wacky. You should just click plus and plus will increase. Maybe I should use Amazon. So this is Amazon, yeah. So let me just pick an item. So if I pick an item, right, and I say this is even a much more complicated database, if I'm being honest with you. Where is the product? Yes. So add to basket, right? I don't have an account. I'm sure that's what they are trying to say. I'm sure that's why they are not allowing me add to cart. I don't have an account right now. Let's do Etsy. Let's see if Etsy will allow me add to cart. Okay. Okay. So 8 inches. Yeah. So if I add this item to basket, yeah. So they talk to backend and create it. This product only has one. Why did I choose this type of product? Let me look for product that I can multiply almost instantly, or I can increment rather. So they have quantity here, right? So let me pick 10 here. Venue only. Digital only. Add to basket. Right? They are also doing the same thing. Amazing. Well, I don't know why they are all using this format, but basically, what you would be expecting is that when you click plus, it's going to happen, it will increment here. However, I won't see this loading. My data would increment immediately, right? Without having to do that loading state thing. Do you get? I think probably they put that there so that you won't continue clicking and adding more. But that's fine. So when your data is incrementing within the database or the DB, all these values, right? Let me even see. I hope they make their requests available. Let me see. So if I do this request now, right? If we do this request, let's see what it does. Yes. So see the request. Can you see? Can you see my screen? No, you're not seeing it. Right. You're not seeing my
Now,
screen.
yes, now, yeah, I can see your screen. It
Okay.
wasn't showing before.
Hey, I was just talking to myself. You could have just told me since now. Okay, so this is what I was saying. Right. So basically we should be incrementing this way. When we increment, this should be the case, right? These values change, update because they are now coming, all this data is coming from the database here. As I'm increasing quantity, it just updates my price and everything. But in network, we can see the request that happens. So let me show you. So if I refresh this page now, I'm going to show you what happens when this user. So you will see a fetch request, and then we'll determine what type of request they make every time they change that. So let's do.
Sorry, I'm only seeing Vera Wang. I'm not seeing any other thing here.
Why is it not showing down again
It's just showing Vera Wang here, nothing more.
as well? 2 seconds again, please. Don't worry, you will stretch and stretch very well. Right. So this is the page I was talking about. So if I update this now, just watch this part. Watch this part of the. This is everything
Okay.
backend developer is. So just watch this
The
part.
console.
Yes, just watch here. If I change to 10, something is supposed to change here. Where's the request? Let me just go to all. Right. It was showing before. I'm wondering why it's not showing again. 2 seconds. Let me just show you. So I'll filter it because I know what they called it before. Quantity. Yes. So this is what they are calling it. So these are the requests. Right. So can you see? Can you see this URL?
Yes, yes, I can see it.
This URL carries almost every detail about this product, right? And what the user wants to do to the product. Let's now see payload. Changing payload to what? 10. Quantity rather to 10. Let's do another one. Let's change it to 7. I mean 20. Let me do 20. Can you see the new request? What did he do here?
You change the request to 20.
Yes.
The
And
quantity,
then it's a
yes.
type of what? They are using post method. Of
Posts,
course,
yes.
a lot of us do not follow that idea of put patch and those nobody really, but it's fine. A post will always work regardless. Post will always do everything. So now they updated their product to 20, and you can see that in the payload. We'll come to how to design some of these things later, but we are just establishing the idea of how these things work and the basics. So when we begin to do them one after the other, it will not be like magic. So now let's come back to where we were. Right. So now understanding the client server model. So I think I said this earlier. Model is like schema. Model is what type of data you have available. Do you get? So when you are designing a product now, your model, products, your clothes model, products will have a model, users will have a model, uh, notifications will have a model. So you call them maybe product model, notification model, user model, contact us model, different models. What they mean essentially is what type of data you have and the data types. Do you get? So for a user model now, you have something like login. Did I say login? You have something like name, first name, last name. First name, last name. In data type, they are all strings, right? They are all
Yes.
strings. You would have something like age, right, which is now a
Number.
number, right? You have something like sex. Sex is almost, it's not an enum. I'll just leave it as, you almost want to call it enum value because it could be either one or two, but you could call it what do they call it? We could call it a string too, because front end can just do a select field and say male or female or M or F. Do you get? So front end can do that. So that's fine. Yeah. But the other thing, you will be looking at data like Boolean values. Boolean values are values that is either false.
Or
Why am I
true.
starting with false first? Either true
True.
or false.
False.
Do you get? That's called a Boolean value, right? Values like let me see the one that we can use for a user that can either say user is true or false. Agree to terms and conditions. Do you get? These days, especially with data and everything now, users, it's very important for users to agree to your terms and condition before they sign up. Do you get? So on that screen, you have that checkbox that say you once you click login or register, you agree to abide by the rule of this website, blah 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 blah. That in itself is agree to terms. So let's call that data agree to terms. It is not a string, it is a boolean, because when the user checks that value, it returns either a true or a
False.
false. Do you get? Because that false, when you get that false back, when a user tries to submit and you get false back, means that that person is not agreeing to your agreement to don't create a
Yes.
session or don't create an account for that user. Do you get? We'll get to some of those things as time goes on. Now, real world application, we've been using e-commerce for the explanation since, and then streaming service. There are levels to some of these things that we develop as well. There are levels to some of the things when you want to develop them, like streaming services is complete sitting down to think, like Spotify. I think what the idea I was giving that time is more in the streaming service time, because looking at some, maybe it's like Spotify, where you have, I don't know how many million people you have on Spotify. You want to design such database. You are considering what are the sizes of your song, right? An average song size, maybe these days will be maybe like 10 MB. Do you get? You as the backend developer, you'll be thinking that, oh, 10 MB, how do we store them? But in a larger organization, it's not that way. The architect will design that. You will just write the functions to put the song somewhere, save it somewhere. Another function to provide the song when the user requests for the song, right? Another function to continue playing the song and ensure there's no interruption. Do you get? In
Yeah.
cases like that, it might be WebSockets for consistent interaction, and then so you know where the user currently is, and then maybe for push notifications, you are considering maybe one signal, Firebase, and stuff like that. So there are several ideologies to some of these things, but as time goes on, we will learn about it. So that's everything in terms of what the backend should be doing and how we should be using it. Now let's come to setups. So I'll share some links with us now because we're almost out of time. So I'll share some link with us in terms of what we need to set up. So we need to download the following. I'm sure everybody has a computer, right? So for some people, they already have some of these things I will mention though. So the first thing is I'm a fan of VS Code. So please, if you find another code editor more interesting for you, it's fine. I don't mind. But VS Code is always the
Sublime.
best to use. I do not have time to debate. People use what they feel like using, but me, I'm a
Yes.
fan of VS Code.
I'm
All
a
I'm,
fan of VS Code too. Yeah, I use
So,
VS Code.
so
all
if you
I'm,
don't have any of these, just go to VS Code. Just type it in VS Code download. VS Code means Visual Studio Code by
Code.
Microsoft.
all I'm,
So when you get on here, let me just bring this. I'll probably just share this link with us after so that everybody can download it for those who don't have it. So you have VS Code. Next thing to download after this, some of the first set of things we talked about was what? Server. Yes. So for some of these things to happen, because I cannot say people should gonna be buying hostings and stuff like that, we have to have our own local server. For our local server, we will be using XAMPP, right? XAMPP here means Apache, MySQL, and
Nice.
PHP. I don't know what the first two X means though, but I know that it's Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So
That's it.
Apache, MariaDB, PHP, and MySQL. So what you need to download here, whether you're using Windows, download the latest Windows version. If you're using Mac OS, download the latest Mac OS version. Please ensure it is PHP 8.2 above, because if it's another PHP version, it will not work for us. So that's, I'll share this link again as well. And then the next thing to download after that is, if you go to, this might be tricky. I might need to do maybe maybe we'll do it one-on-one session on Wednesday. I might just post what we'll do on Wednesday because I know this would or might be tricky. So if you go to laravel.com, I hope it's .com. I hope I get it right. Yes. So if you go to laravel.com, this is where I'm going to build their website. Nice. So if you go to laravel.com, right, just say install. Let me go to where is, I can't even remember where it is again
Maybe
because I don't do this every time. Let's go to documentation. It should be in documentation, installation, yeah. So here we expect your computer to be able to do this, but I know that it's always tricky, right? It's always tricky. Some computer will not respond to some of these commands. You might need to do a lot of things, right? So, but if you can follow these instructions and try to install Laravel. I want to install Laravel 12. I want to install Laravel 12. So I want to. I'm thinking so that we won't have so many new commands that we have to learn. Let's go to 11. Let's do 11, right? Let's do 11 because 12 is pretty new. Some things might still be breaking there. So let's do version 11, right? Yes. So we install version 11 for our learnings this time. Yeah, and then um, I think for API, yes. And then the last thing is Postman. The reason why I'm not taking this as a class is because it will just be a waste of our time. If you want to start learning now, you need to know how to do some of these things. I will share the needs for us to get. However, I can't be in class saying this how to use this. I would show us when we need to use them. Right. So that's the last thing. So this is what we'll be using to test our APIs and everything. So if you use Windows, please download for Windows. If you use Mac, please download for Mac. Thank you. Any questions? As that will be the end of the session today for backend. Any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
I
you.
can.
Okay. You said we should download VS Code, but me, I have problem with VS Code. So I don't know
Okay.
what are we going to be working in so I can know like the alternative.
No, if you don't have VS Code, you can use things like Atom or like you suggested, Sublime Text or stuff like that. There are a lot of other code editors there. You could download PyCharm. Say again, sorry. It's our IDE and maybe some of the live environment available there. So like well, maybe for backend it might not be necessary. For front end it might be core that you have that, but for backend it might not be necessary because for backend most of the things we'll be doing will be via command line, so it will always publish for us. So it might just be text editing, to be honest. Yeah, but for front end you might want to do some live previews. So it's different. Yeah.
So boss, I have a question.
Yes, please.
My own question is a bit advanced, you know.
No problem.
Um, but I know you put me through. So I'm having issues running. Like if I want to run npm dev because I was working on a project. I just diving into backend, right? So
Right.
like, okay, let me just develop a code and open AI, like an AI whatever applications, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So after I use Express.js as my
Okay.
server tool. So then I install the server, I install calls, the package element and everything. Everything was fine. So, but at the end of the day, after I set up or I organize the code, so trying to execute the server to run, I press npm dev. It was giving
So
me
I want to understand one thing. Did you clone the project or you created it from scratch?
no. I didn't clone it from scratch.
No. So
So I,
so.
I created the server from scratch,
Mhm.
right? So I'm still working on the server before I dive into the front end side of it.
Yeah, so it's
Understand?
we're saying the same thing. So how that works is, even if you like, that's what I'm saying. Did you clone it? If you clone it, that means so many things are already existing on the app that you probably don't have.
No,
But
I
if you
did not
started
clone it.
Express.js yourself, means that if you created your server.js file yourself, right?
Yes, yes,
All you
yes.
just need to do is to run when you open that folder, yeah, open the
Yes.
folder that you created. Maybe you can rework what you're doing. You get rather than go
Okay.
to the one you're currently having now. So create
Okay.
your server.js file, right? When you create your server.js file, put everything the Express needs into it, right? Express needs will be like your include Express, some of those things on top of that, and then the app port, put everything there,
Mm,
and then go into your command line and just do npm install. Yeah, when you run
okay.
npm install, it's supposed to bring all the dependencies of
Yeah,
your server.js.
yeah, the
Immediately
proper,
those
what do you
dependencies
call it?
are available in your
Okay.
node modules.
Yes.
There's no way npm run dev will not work.
Yes,
And
I even
your
I went
script,
to
you
my
need to also check one thing. You need to also check one thing. So you go into package.json file. Do you have that
yeah,
file on your?
yes, I went
So
there, I
you need
checked my
to,
package JSON.
yeah. So
Yes.
you need to see the script you have on top of your package.json file. What? Because that script is what you are supposed to enter in your command line.
Yes, that I did that.
Yes, means that something is wrong with your. That's why I said start afresh. Yeah, start afresh. Create a new
Okay.
server.js or server.ts, whichever one you are using. Put the old script.
I was already getting discouraged, like maybe backend is not for me.
No, no, it's not. It's not that. Node.js will always run as long as even if it's just server.js dot whatever, and you put the
Oh,
right
okay.
dependencies in, it will always run.
Okay.
Okay,
Please,
so
yeah, one more thing, please. This is going to be a personal discussion between you and I after the.
okay,
Please,
no
I
problem,
just
please.
like I will need to take your time, please. I
No
need to have
problem, no
some,
problem.
yeah, one-on-one conversation.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you everyone. So this will be end of session for backend people. Please, I would get on the front end in another 10 minutes. Thank you and take care.